All right, welcome. Today, we're going to unpack a pivotal moment in history. A single meeting that you could argue stood right between the idea of a united India and, well, the violent partition that followed. We're talking about the Simla Conference.
So picture this. It's 1945. This conference, the Simla Conference, was supposed to be it. The last big step towards a peaceful, united, and independent India. But it didn't just fail. It hit a total deadlock. And the fallout from that? It was huge. So you got to ask, what on earth went wrong?
Okay, to really get why this moment was so heavy, you have to understand the atmosphere at the time. World War II is just wrapping up. Britain, they're exhausted, they're weakened, and they're under some serious pressure to finally hand over power. But inside India? Oh man, the political air was just electric with tension, especially between the two biggest political players.
And let's be clear, this wasn't their first rodeo. They'd tried before. You had the Cripps mission back in '42. That failed. Then there were the direct talks between Gandhi and Jinnah in '44. Those failed too. So all these failed attempts just built up this huge wall of mistrust. It was a complete political stalemate between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League. Something new, something different had to be done.
So into this incredibly tense situation steps the Viceroy, a guy named Lord Wavell. He comes back from London in May of 1945, and he's got this brand new, really ambitious plan. This, he thought, was the blueprint that could finally break the deadlock and set India on a new path.
The big idea behind it was actually pretty simple, but for the time, it was kind of revolutionary. Wavell's plan was to create a temporary government, an interim government, that would basically run the country. And here's the kicker. This government would be almost entirely Indian. They'd manage everything until a proper, brand-new constitution could be hammered out.
And when you look at the details, you can see just how groundbreaking this was supposed to be. I mean, not only was the new executive council going to be almost all Indian, but for the very first time, a super important job, the defense portfolio, was going to be handed over to an Indian member. That was a big deal. But the real make-or-break feature, well, that was all about representation.
And right here, this is the absolute heart of the plan, and also its most controversial part. It was called parity. The idea was that the council would have an equal number of Muslims and caste Hindus. Now, that was a term they used back then to distinguish them from other groups. On the one hand, it was an attempt to balance power, but on the other, wow, it was a political minefield. Why? Because it basically set up these communities as two separate competing political blocs.
Okay, so the stage is set, the plan's on the table. In the summer of 1945, all the major players, we're talking leaders from the Indian National Congress, the Muslim League, you name it, they all head up to the hill station of Simla. The goal, to debate this thing and, fingers crossed, actually form this new government.
And this is where it all fell apart. It all boiled down to one single issue. On one side, you have the Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Their position was firm. They were the only party representing India's Muslims, so they, and they alone, must nominate all 5 Muslim members to the council. No exceptions. But on the other side, the Congress Party said no way. They argued they were a secular party representing all Indians, Hindus, Muslims, everyone. And they insisted on their right to nominate their own Muslim members, including their own party president, Maulana Azad.
You see, for Jinnah, this was so much more than just 5 seats on a council. This was about identity. It was about political power. If he allowed Congress to nominate a Muslim, he felt it would completely tear down the Muslim League's claim to be the one and only voice for India's Muslims. It was a non-starter, a line in the sand he absolutely would not cross.
So you had this total impasse. Neither side was willing to give an inch on this fundamental point of who gets to nominate the Muslim representatives. And because of that, the whole conference was basically doomed from the start. The Wavell plan was built on the idea that everyone had to agree. And with this one issue, the entire foundation just crumbled.
And that was that. After weeks of back and forth, all that initial hope just evaporated. On July 14, 1945, Lord Wavell had to step up and officially announce that the Simla Conference was a failure.
But here's what's so important to understand. It wasn't just this one disagreement that sank the ship. It was really a perfect storm of problems. That whole representation issue, that was the lightning strike. But it struck a landscape already soaked in years of mistrust. You had the Congress Party digging in its heels on its secular identity, and the plan itself had a fatal flaw. It basically gave every major party a veto. One no could bring the whole thing down.
So, the conference fails to create a government. Big deal, right?
Well, actually, it was a huge deal. The collapse of these talks had massive, and I mean massive, consequences that would literally change the map and the future of the entire subcontinent.
And here's the ironic twist. By refusing to budge and by essentially killing the whole plan, Jinnah actually made the Muslim League stronger. It sent a crystal-clear message to both the British and to Congress. The League had power. You could not ignore them. You could not go around them. They had to be dealt with.
And this political power move had a huge ripple effect. For many Muslims who were watching, the failure of the conference felt like the final nail in the coffin for united India. The belief that a separate state, Pakistan, was the only way to protect their interests, that belief got a massive, massive boost.
So you can see how this all connects. The Simla deadlock wasn't just an end to a negotiation. No, it was a massive turning point. It hardened the lines between the parties, it created the explosive atmosphere for the 1946 elections, and it basically put India on a fast track, a track that led directly to the partition in 1947.
Which leaves us with this huge, lingering question, one that historians still argue about today. Was this it? Was the Simla Conference the last real, genuine chance to keep India united? Or, by 1945, was it already too late? We'll never know for sure. But what is certain is that the failure of this one meeting was a critical fork in the road, one that led straight to the creation of two separate nations.